Welcome back to another episode of Spaceman 2.0. In this episode, I would love to get into reincarnation and how reincarnation was taken out of the Bible. Now, wouldn't it be great to understand that if you were to come back to this planet, and this planet was the most wonderful place for you to evolve and grow in knowledge, then you would keep it healthy and safe and clean. And you would work towards a more perfected life instead of just one put out by Drake, YOLO, live only once or something like that. You only live once, which is a great way to get the teenagers to do anything and not think about consequences. So, reincarnation was taken out of the Bible. Well, let's just read a little bit about it from this wonderful book put out by spiritual people. Reincarnation, a basic question and an age-old adage of mankind. Reincarnation, this is a basic adage of mankind. At all times and in most cultures, this subject has been an element of faith and of speculation. The well-known Swiss psychologist C.J. Jung held that reincarnation is an expression which definitely belongs to an age-old statement of mankind. Now, C.G. Jung also understands the archetypes and the 22 trump cards of the tarot, or wonderful archetypes of life's cycles and patterns. Now, reincarnation is an expression which definitely belongs to an age-old statements of mankind. These age-old adages are based on what I call the archetype. In their very origin, all statements regarding the supernatural are determined by the archetype. So that is not surprising that we find statements about reincarnation among many peoples. Okay. Knowledge about the reincarnation of a soul is the basis for satisfactory interpretation of suffering and guilt, of the very meaning of existence. It gives an answer to the question why children are born in misery, crippled and sick. Now, if anyone's visited India, you'd understand that this is a basic premise of all the religion there, and it gives you a wonderful understanding of how people can still deal with their karma, they call it, and love God and understand that it's part of their karma, where they are in their life. It gives an answer to the question why children are born in misery, crippled, and sick. From the religious point of view, the same question is raised. How is this possible if God of love exists? On the other hand, why are many people born into wealth, prosperity, and health? And why are there so-called child prodigies? The question of whether there is a possibility of repeated lives on earth is the most essential one. It concerns the very basic interpretation of our human existence. It relates to concepts of man, of the world, and of God. Now, this was not something of old, or something not known. This was an well-known thing. So knowledge about reincarnation is not only widespread in Eastern religions, for example, Hinduism, Buddhism, but to many great Western poets and thinkers of bygone and modern times. This knowledge is self-evident by their way of thinking. Empedocles, sorry, I butchered that name, Pythagoras, Plato, and Virgil, and then later Goethe, Hölderlin, Schiller, Schleiermacher, I'm sorry if I butchered that, Fichte, Kant, Schopenhauer, and Nietzsche. Even Nietzsche believed in reincarnation when he tried to influence people with humanism, or the elites used his stuff. Kierkegaard, Voltaire, among others, were convinced of the possibility of repeated lives on Earth. Now, today, the idea of reincarnation is upheld by large esoteric movements, for example, the Anthroposophists, the Rosicrucians or the Lorber groups. Universal Life too upholds the teaching of the possibility of several incarnations in human body for a soul. Science too is interested in reincarnation. Extensive materials available, for example, the work of Professor Jan Stevenson, who after several years of research on over 1,500 cases of spontaneous recollection, expressed the conviction that the case scientifically examined by him by far exceed the mere suggestion of reincarnation. To me, they adequately prove it. Another well-known name is Thorwald Stephenson, who led his patients back into former lives by means of a method which he himself developed, thus bringing to light memories deeply rooted in the soul. He used this method to treat psychosomatic ailments in their present life. So this is a type of hypnotherapy. Despite, or rather because of these research results and the widespread knowledge about reincarnation, there's no standard doctrine but many different opinions, which of course overlap and in part coincide in their essence and in the application of this knowledge. It is like the question about God. All religions affirm his existence, but there are different concepts about his nature. Everywhere there are smaller or larger sparks of one truth mixed with differing human opinions, conceptions. The same applies to reincarnation. The fact is hardly denied, but when it comes to the details, or statements can differ considerably. For instance, the concept of reincarnation can simply be identified with the transmigration of the soul. Eastern understanding differs from Western, depending on which image of God it is based upon. Unlike the opinion of the Catholic and Protestant teachings, we are convinced that there is also a Christian viewpoint on the doctrine of reincarnation. I believe this was taken out of the Bible intentionally to keep the Western population from understanding what the Eastern, Southeast Asian people know and is mixed into their culture is reincarnation on a daily basis. Everyone knows that you're responsible for your actions, and if everyone knew that you're coming back to this planet, they'd keep it safe and healthy and clean. Like I said, just think about it, and you'd be more loving and kind. That's what all these teachers are here to teach you. It makes no sense. You just hear one and done. God wouldn't make it that silly, I think. That'd be a silly way to do it. So, on the doctrine of reincarnation, moreover, that the knowledge about reincarnation of the soul is part of early Christian thought, an essential element of Christian faith. The knowledge about reincarnation was a fixed part of Christian thought during the time of early Christianity. And in its first centuries, Jesus of Nazareth also taught about reincarnation, and many church scholars considered reincarnation as self-evident. Okay, it is self-evident, but basically everything works in cycles, and if you can't see that, then... Okay, so Hermann Bauer confirmed this is his work on reincarnation. He critically evaluated Greek and Latin biblical texts, council documents, and works of early church fathers, and came to the conclusion that reincarnation is an early Christian teaching. References in the Bible are, for example, found in Matthew 16:14, also Luke 9:19, when Jesus asked who people thought he was. Thereupon his disciples answered him, and that some thought him to be John the Baptist, other Elijah, and yet others Jeremiah or some other prophet. In another example, Jesus spoke of the return of Elijah, meaning John the Baptist, Matthew 17:10-13, also Luke 9:8. So all these prove in the Bible that reincarnation was a common thought. Okay, the church teacher Rufinus confirmed in a letter to Anastasis that the belief in repeated lives was common knowledge for the church fathers, and that at all times it has been passed on in old tradition. I don't know how to say that name, Origenes 185-254, who was one of the greatest Greek church fathers, taught reincarnation with strong conviction. See, 185-254. They didn't put the Council of Nicene together till 3-something. So after 300 years, they put the manuscripts together and called it the Bible. Meanwhile, there's many more Gospels and many more teachings that were involved, and they just took the ones that Constantinople chose, and out of all his council, to keep the population in control, not the freedom teaching that Jesus taught. So who was one of the greatest Greek church fathers? Taught reincarnation with strong conviction. The original Bible manuscripts in Greek and Hebrew were still at his disposal. So who are you going to believe? The watered down versions with 20,000 different words, and they take out the 6 different ways to say hell, because maybe there is 3 different types of hell or 6 different types of hell, who knows? The doctrine of reincarnation was thus a constituent I can't say that word, part of Christianity in the first centuries. All the more surprising that this knowledge was and is not taught by Western churches. Okay, so the church versus reincarnation. Again, look, Constantinople. Okay, how did the elimination of the truth about reincarnation develop? Let us look into this question briefly. For many reasons, both political and human, numerous theological disputes about the teachings of Origenes broke out. Since Origenes was acknowledged everywhere as a prominent figure in the early church, he was the authority, and both opponents as well as supporters referred to him. Knowledge about reincarnation became more and more associated with his name. In the course of the following centuries, the dispute about Origenes became increasingly strong, thus requiring a definitive decision, and so a crucial event followed which resulted in the expression and elimination of the doctrine of reincarnation. as the synod of the Orthodox Church in the year 543 in Constantinople, the teachings of Origenes were banned with 9 anathemas, curses. Wow. See how much they wanted to keep this out? Among them were 2 curses which indirectly condemned the teaching of reincarnation. First, the pre-existence of the soul is denied, and in this connection, the souls originally existed as pure beings in heaven, who then, however, broke away from God and incarnated in human bodies. Secondly, all those are cursed who do not believe there is an eternal damnation for demons and impious men, as well as a punishment for all those who believe in a reintegration return to God. Apoktastasis. The formulation of these anathemas was carried out per the instructions of Emperor Justinian I, who considered himself the supreme ruler of the church. The anathemas ordered by him were confirmed by the Synod of 543, and 10 years later, Pope Vigilus signed the curses submitted to him by the Council of Constantinople, although according to the council reports, they had not been discussed at all. The personality of Emperor Justinian, the general conditions of war in the Eastern Roman Empire, and the threatening danger of being confronted with an additional internal political religious front in Palestine were the political motives for the elimination of the doctrine of reincarnation. In order to fill the gap resulting from the condemnation of the teaching of reincarnation, in order to support the doctrine of only one human life, new dogmas had to be created. These dealt mainly with original sin, creation of the soul, and the moment of begetting, mortal sin, judgment day, purgatory, and eternal damnation. At the same time, the necessity of salvation through priestly intermediaries was established, for without them the system of doctrines could not have functioned. With this, however, the questions about the meaning of suffering and guilt that were stated at the beginning are from the very start unanswerable. With empty theological phrases, people who ask existential questions are consoled with the apparent mysteries of God, which should not be put into question. So, before we get into the origin of even Satan and the fall of the angels, reincarnation has been taken out of the Bible for political reasons and for spiritual reasons, to keep the people subjugated to a false reality of not understanding where they live and what they live on. In another episode, I'll even get into that 500 years ago, everyone knew the earth was flat. But that's another story. So this wonderful book on reincarnation, slipping in and out of the flesh, I vouch for it. I know it's true. And I hope you do too. So God bless, take care everyone, and treat your fellow man with love, because you will be coming back to learn more until you perfect yourself in the light of God. Amen, and bye for now. I'm Spaceman 2.0, and I'm out.